Voting, I said on record saying voting for Kamala is short term. It's a short term political strategy that I understand that for some populations that I'm sympathetic to, but I think ultimately it will not have any long term positive effects, and there's greater potential for long term negative effects.
Mm.
But that's just potential. Another Trump administration turns those small, minute potentials into absolute losses immediately. So I understand, because a lot of these people that take these particular principled political stances, they don't get food stamps, they don't get WIC, they're not under crippling medical debt or school debt. They have enough resources where they can secure their medication, their prescription medications. They're cisgendered.
And this is not to say that there's no child having poor trans people that are never vote Kamala people, but like I've had the same perception that the average person I've seen, the typical person I've seen promoting this,
right,
is much closer to my socioeconomic stance than
when Reagan took office. At that time, I was living in public housing. I was on Medicaid. I was on food stamps. I received free lunch. I was going to public school, and I was taking saxophone and guitar lessons paid for by a state grant that was funded by the federal government. I was on the teat, not to mention the free cheese and powdered milk. And I eat the free cheese, but I make this concoction with the powdered milk to feed the project cats, where our neighborhood had a bunch of stray cats. And when Reagan took office, there was an appreciable, measurable decline in what the terminology wasn't around back then, but the quality of life, our access to resources, and the availability and consistency of the resources, because he ran on a ticket saying that my mother was going to buy Cadillacs with her food stamps.
Right.
Wasn't it? And my grandmother, I was actually raised by my grandmother, who had adopted us, who was retired and on several public assistances. So I greatly understand the relationship between administrations and the direct impact on the livelihood and opportunities of people that the state oppresses.
Right. If I could add real quick, I'm sorry, that in the conversations I have with politically engaged proletariat, air quotes, proletariat Black folks, this whole non-voting shit sounds silly to them, because they say, unfortunately, some of them say some maybe not so great things about like the ongoing things outside of the US, but they know that struggle that you're talking about, and they know what happens when Republicans get in office and cut all the resources for the sake of saying that they're doing something to perpetrate that narrative of welfare, while they provide welfare for, the top 1%, and corporations and et cetera, et cetera. And like, that's another thing that's stilled me somewhat in my decision making, is the